Hi, Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. I'm Syazwani from UiTM Negeri Sembilan and currently I'm studying in UMT Terengganu. So today I want to share about the saltwater intrusion effects on soil organic carbon, and my focus is in the wetland area. So I will start with the abstract, followed with the saltwater intrusion, soil organic carbon aka SOC, coastal wetland salinity effect on SOC, impact on affected SOC, and lastly the conclusions. So in this slide, I will share about the effect of salinity into the soil organic carbon in the wetland area. And this current scenario has result from the human activity or anthropogenic activity and then been promoted by the natural event. And because it can affect with the climate change, so this wetland area should be in our concerns. So my aims is to highlight the saltwater intrusion effects on the soil organic carbon accumulation in the wetland area. So as I mentioned just now, this saltwater intrusion scenario can exist in the groundwater due to the human activity and also the climate change. And the saltwater intrusion means the movement of the saltwater or the seawater into the coastal aquifers, which means the fresh water in the groundwater. And this event can influence by the density gradient. Okay, and when we have the decreasing in the hydraulic gradient, so this will give the impact on the natural balance of the fresh water and also the salt water. Right. So when we have the mixture of the salt water and the fresh water, so by the 4% mixing will make the water unusable. And this saltwater intrusion can be indicated by the total dissolved solid or the TDS and also by the electrical conductivity by the EC. Okay, for this slide shows the soil organic carbon, the SOC. So this SOC, the function is to regulate the carbon cycle and also the global climate change. So the alteration of the SOC, so it will raise the major problem in order to sustain the coastal development. And then in the wetland area, when we have the higher water table, so means that we have the higher number of SOC. This is due to the low number of decomposition process occur in the soil. Alright, so in this slide, we have the coastal wetland. So what I want to highlight is in the coastal wetland or the tidal wetland. So means that they are affected by the tidal. For example, the mangrove and then the salt marshes and also the bridge area. So this coastal wetland, they can store more than 50 times of the carbon as compared to the terrestrial forest. And this wetland vegetation, it contains the largest store of the biotic carbon, which known as the blue carbon, and the importance to absorb the carbon in the atmosphere. Right, so this is what happened when we have the increasing in the salinity. So first, we have decreasing in the microbial activity. So the higher the salinity, so it become the slow decomposition rates of the DOC, the dissolved organic carbon, and also it will cause the soil physical changes. And also the higher salinity will reduce the soil respiration, and after that it will alter the enzymatic activity in the soil. Right, and all those cause, so it will inhibit the SOC accumulation. So by reduce the plant growth, so what happen is the plant will become stunted. So when it becomes stunted, the SOC input will be low in numbers. So that is why what happen when the salinity higher in the groundwater system. Okay, so what happen when we have the affected SOC? So the worst impact globally. So we have the global warming. So this global warming will cause the climate change. So when we have the global climate change, so it will alter the climate, rise the temperature, and what we can see nowadays is the sea level increase. That one is just one of the impact from the climate change. And also when we talk about the salinity, the salts, so the osmotic pressure has been altered in the plants, and then the plant cannot retain or cannot adapt with the higher salinity, so their their growth have been stunted, and for the farmers this will become the worst scenario for their yield harvest. So their yield will become lower, and of course they will be affected. So as you can see in this slide, I put the picture of the salts in the soil. So this is what happened when we have the groundwater that been polluted by the salts. So in a nutshell, the amount of the SOC will be affected by the saltwater intrusions, and when the plant growth have been stunted, have been hindered, so the size of the wetland can be reduced. So where the wetland area is depleted, so the huge amount of carbon in the atmosphere cannot be absorbed. So as we know, the wetland or the plant is the carbon sink. So when this wetland or this area has been altered, so of course it will result in the climate change. So what we need is we need to protect this area, and then we can see the changes when we have this area. So here are my references, and thank you for listening.